Maybe we should turn that off.
Let's talk about it.
What?
Oh, here, she don't want her big, well, she said.
How far back do I have to stand over here?
Yeah, we need.
Is this good?
I think so.
Yes.
You guys on the Zoom, how's the sound?
That's right. I told you, nobody told me. When I was like, you know, it's not.
You need to hear Fay speak, so we can't tell.
Yeah,
Okay.
fair enough. Yep, I'd say you can go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fay Kravitz Biegun, and I'm very excited to show you my work and talk about how I went from one extreme of painting to a totally other thing, from this to this.
That's pretty different.
Okay, they're different. Well, it was a very interesting progression. When I was a little girl, I knew that I was an artist, and I drew all the time. And I think my family kind of liked that because it got me out of the way. You know, I didn't get in trouble or anything. And I had a very wonderful art teacher in high school. Her name was Mary Jo Reesberg. She was great. And I learned how to see, and I learned how to draw from her. My first assignment was to draw a cow. Now, I'm a little girl from the Bronx, and I moved to Long Island where there was a development built on a potato farm where you dug up stuff and there was potatoes in it. But there were no cows. I didn't know what a cow looked like. So I said to her, I don't know what a cow looks like other than like Elsie or something like that. She said, well, find a picture. And this was obviously way before computers. So I wound up spending a lot of time in the library. But I learned a lot. I had to draw everything. Trees I could do from home, though. I continued to work in a style like kind of photorealistic, realistic. And that's what I did then. I went to Pratt Institute for painting and graphics. When I graduated, I didn't have a degree in teaching. I didn't want to do advertising, so I went back to school. And I studied fashion because my whole family is in the rag trade. The rag trade is actually the garment trade. But I had furriers and milliners and samplers and pattern workers, and I grew up with all that stuff. So I figured I'd go for fashion, and I had a good background. And when I graduated, I got this great job on 7th Avenue being an accessories designer. That was a dream job. It was really great. And the most fun thing about it was not the job so much, was that when you rode on the subway, you would see people wearing your creations. It's great. What better models do you have than your children? I took my children everywhere, all the parks on Long Island, and took photos, mostly candid when they were little, and then we started doing posing. One of my favorite places is the Oyster Bay Arboretum, and it is just so charming and had a lot of locations where you could shoot really interestingly, and even in the winter, it had big, bright, colored flowers, and the background was all white from the snow because you were in a greenhouse. Just great. So I did poses. Later on, we did dress
I got
up.
it.
Then we started doing some action things, you know, interaction. And my favorite one, well, as they got older, they got more elaborate. My favorite one was murder on the beach with a rubber knife. Guess who was the victim? I was an eccentric mother. Then I wanted to do, I was working in pastel very large, then I wanted to do some oil paintings and move away from the pastels. Pastel is still my favorite medium. because you're just drawing with color. And I came up with this scenario of, my concept was like a comic book, and each square would be a different action setting, kind of like a storyboard. And I started creating the characters, and my main character was this little girl who was my archetype. And I really spent a lot of time developing her, and all her clothes were, everything was important about her to describe her personality. But the only way to really get somebody's personality is when you have them interact with other people. So I had to go into my psyche and draw out these other characters that were going to battle with her or be nice to her or whatever. And I did a series called Inner Child. And here you have a little girl kind of spying on the woman. And these are architects from my site. The actual landscape is from near where I live, well, where I used to live. So I used that, where I was as a backdrop. That was a very successful, but very difficult series, very soul-searching, very self-revelatory. I spent a lot of time going to Hawaii. I went to Hawaii about 6 or 7 times. And it's a far trip, but it's gorgeous there. And I would take my sketch materials and I do painting and drawing and watercolors and come back and I would work on large canvases, much larger than this. And I started like that, fairly realistic. And then I started breaking up the surface with black lines and white around it to give it some oomph, and it abstracted it somewhat. And that's what my goal was, because I've never been able to do abstract work like that. And it was really interesting for me to work on this project. I evolved to have only a white line around everything. Then I took the line away altogether, and I had blocks of color next to each other. So that was my evolution over there. My next series was based on the Arab Spring. This is a picture with symbols and energy that is supposed to mean everything is organizing together and working, and the Arab Spring really was very exciting to me because it was all possibilities of peace. The original one was pastel, and it was so successful that I made it into a painting. And then the following pieces were based on this composition. I would take the composition, I put it in the computer, then I would manipulate it and have it mean something else. Some of the ones in this group are based on the monomyth of the hero. Joseph Campbell was a mythologist who compared different religions, different cultures, and found that all cultures have the same basic stories. They have the creation story, they have the flood. But the one that interested me the most at the time was the myth of the hero. And to me, it represented Moses or Jesus or Buddha or any one of these people who became leaders of their people. First, they start out, they could even be mythological, like a Hercules. They started out, they had a calling, whether they wanted it or not, and then they had to go through all these trials and tribulations, come out the end a better person in order to lead their people. So I have a lot of abstracted pictures that show, a mountain, but everything in abstract and kind of cosmic look. Then I looked at the whole group and it was very gray. So I decided I wanted to move on and add color and movement. the next group was called Chaos. It's actually probably the most dynamic of all the groups. And this was, one of the paintings I had was the Ark to the Promised Land. And this is the destruction of the Ark. And you can see how I break up the form. I did it on the computer. And then I grid it up and paint it. So I may make some alterations when I'm working on canvas, but basically it's very, very pre-planned and exact. Then the composition started getting more melodic, and I just let it go with it, you know. This is Vibration. It's called First Song. And a lot of these are, vibrations are, because I think everything is made out of vibration. So I went from everything, everybody has the same stories, to just everything is all vibrations. That's a gamma wave. That's a new brain. One of them was the Dragon Song, which I really like. This is a large picture. That's why I'm using these, because I can't really bring all the big things here. So I went from the realistic to, this is part of the Chaos group. This is Breach. This is Sea and Sky. And then I went to this. When you get up, you can take a look at them. They're so different. And what happened when I finished the vibrations, I felt so hemmed in by the pre-planning and the exactness that I just wanted to release. So I took a bunch of acrylic, which I never work in, I just have it there, and a brush, and I just started making marks. And I stopped when I thought it was right. And what was really strange about it was I didn't even know if it was right, because I hadn't worked like this before. So I didn't know, I just had a feeling. And this whole group is bad. When I approach the canvas, I try not to think. I try to be intuitive and spontaneous and try to leave this out. And I'm really enjoying having this other point of view and going that way. So that's how I got from that way to that way. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
So after this phase, what do you think is going to come
I
next?
don't know. I think I've already started a couple of things, and they started with gray, and then I started putting color on top. So I'm moving again. You know, I keep moving from that foot, but this is more in my mind is in another place when I do these.
Looks great.
The others? Yes?
Yeah, I admire your versatility. I was just talking to Elliot a little while ago, and I said that I'm thinking about just doing something I've never done before. And it's funny how life gives you an answer sometimes when you're really not even looking for it. And that painting there is black and white, I know, because I saw it. The simplicity of that is like so beautiful. I can't believe it. That you're able to, but the way that you speak about things has meaning. You talked about vision, and you talked about a lot of things, and I really appreciate you doing this for us today.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to be here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That's it? Oh, I'm, okay. Does anybody have questions from the Zoom? You have to unmute if you wanna.
Can I ask a question?
Fay,
Yeah,
I assume you sold some of your pieces?
in the past,
I
yeah.
see
Where they're-
Alan
where they're
Kravitz,
displayed, or-
whoever's on there is muted.
All over
If
the
you're
country.
trying to ask
I
a
still
question.
have things all over the country. They have a whole museum in their house.
Relatives, right?
Or if you're having trouble,
Like in Florida. some
you
my
can
friends have them.
put a comment in the chat room. Looks like somebody put a couple comments in the chat.
Okay.
Where?
Two temples.
Two temples.
Okay. Right, the plastic is creating a glare, so you had a bit of issues with people seeing the artwork because there's glare from the plastic.
Sorry,
Kind of unavoidable
okay.
photographically speaking, but it's good to know for
Yes,
future reference.
okay. Thank you.
No, not really.
Um, Anybody else have any questions or comments on the Zoom?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Oh, I
Okay.
hear
Hi,
you now.
Fay. All right, we really enjoyed it. In fact, we thought we knew everything about your progression and evolution, and we learned even more. I think more than anything, I am struck because I come from a, neurophysiologic background, psychology and neurophysiology, and how your art really, transgresses all the different functions of the brain, in terms of being intuitive, being very scientific and going on the computer and using that as your, model or whatever. And I just really think that it's a very unique trait and quality among everyone, even artists. And it's just so delightful to see your progression and how you presented it today. You did a really great job. Thank you.
Susan.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Mara?
Yes. What medium are the black and white ones? Are they oil or acrylic?
One is oil, the first
Yeah.
one is oil, and then all of these are acrylic.
Oh, so they're both, okay. I
Yeah.
love them. They're beautiful.
Thank you. I really started going from flat to
Uh-huh.
textured. I
They have so much depth. They're amazing.
Thank you, thank you.
Fay,
Yes. Wait,
Fay,
yeah. Who's that?
Annette.
Annette.
Annette, hi,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm great, and I want to thank you for doing this. When you were talking about the photographs, I was remembering I think you did photographs. You took photographs and then you painted what they were.
Yeah,
And your father and the girls ended up on a billboard.
yes, they did.
And I remember driving down to Florida with Alan,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I see my
Actually,
uncle.
that was
and
not the painting that I did.
Oh, you
that
didn't
was
do that
a-
one?
That was a photograph that Richard took.
Oh, okay.
Photograph.
Well, they're still
That's
good.
okay. I took pictures of you too, so I didn't get away with
Don't tell me that.
it. Gabby, do you have a question?
Yeah, the last word that's more intuitive. What exactly, was there a catalyst, a point that sort of led you to it, or just, you mentioned
you
loose
probably-
paints at home,
Yeah,
or
you-
old paints?
well, I have all kinds of paint materials at home. I used to work in an art store. I tried everything. And I had acrylics, which I usually use as an underpainting. I didn't really paint with acrylic per se. And I was doing all this very tight work. And I wanted a release. I really needed to change. And so I got some of this stuff and I started just not thinking. It was very hard not thinking, what are you gonna do and all kinds of stuff. I just kind of mark making is what I was doing. That's what I came up with. I added sand and pumice and used different tools like combs and trowels. So everything was an experiment, but it was all not thought out. It was just happened to come out of me. And I think I was able to do it because I went through all these different things.
So my question is actually related to the next step. So you mentioned that intuitively you know when you're finished with that piece. Can you dig a little bit deeper? I'm always very curious about the end. And I'm curious what exactly tells you so. And then I'm also curious if you come back after you think that it's done, a few days later and you look.
Absolutely. There's a point where I say, I can't go back to that anymore, and I have to stop. You just have to stop. But I will go back a number of times. You know, I'll do it, I'll put it on the side, I'll look at it a couple of days. Usually I have to go back and adjust a little bit, but you just have to call it quits after a while. But the way I know that it's done with this stuff, it's really hard because I'm so used to having it pre-planned and knowing what it's basically what it's going to be. With this, it's like it has to jump out as alive. It just has to have its own life.
Great, wonderful work.
Thank you. Yes.
Say, you know, I had this wonderful instructor who, and it was with abstract painting, and she said, pair, P-E-A-R, play, experiment, analyze, revise. And that's kind of the procedure that I always.
You work like that.
Yeah.
You've always worked like that.
Right?
Well, I was more realistic in the
Were you?
beginning, yes. I think everybody kind of moves along like that, but yeah, I was much more realistic.
Yeah, because in your work, I always see that playfulness. Mine is much more struggle. It's not always easy for me,
No.
but it's always fun in a way. It's always fun.
It's hard
Yeah.
to like go to that other place of being abstract with it because you like, no, you're kind of drawn back to your realism.
Yeah,
Let the mind and the subconscious just take over.
right,
And just
exactly.
flow with it.
Yeah.
If you leave your own, you're just in another place.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you go in the zone and you just
And here,
follow
and from here, from
Yeah.
the soul.
Mhm.
Paint from the heart.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Martin. Just one question, where do you get can you get your inspiration from anything? It may be like, who knows, you know, I don't know.
Well, you know, one of them was current events.
Right,
One of them, you know, like I was reading Joseph Campbell. So that kind of stuff. I could see a movie.
right.
I get it anywhere, you know.
Yeah, I think you can find it in anything, you know, usually. So thanks.
Any more? Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Hey, thank you everybody showing up. We, as the Arts Collective here, really appreciate Fay's monthly contributions. We've got several really people who are masters of their craft and educators. So we have another. We change our show every 2 months. So starting in June, July, we'll have a whole new setting here. We'll have a new soloist. Barbara, do you know who the soloist is for?
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
I'm hitting it.
I'm
So we-
seeing all my friends and family. Hi.
Also, there are
Hi.
there's plenty of galleries in Poughkeepsie. If you ever want to take a walking tour, and you can just ride around Main Street. There's a lot of galleries there, a lot of murals. So grab one of these, because this area is really blooming and blossoming as far as art is. So thank you.
Thanks. We're gonna head out. Sounds really good. You did a great job. Yeah.
Who's watching that baby?
Yeah.
Who's watching that baby? Oh, I'm
Thanks,
gonna get a
folks.
glimpse of it.
Take care.
Napping. I've seen pictures.
Yeah, we were gonna bring them, but